Hey guys, welcome back to another week. I'm Jana.
And I'm Daniel.
Our goal as believers is to allow God to change us and mold us to be like Jesus.
This week, we continue our focus on the circle by diving into what it means to serve one another.
One of the things I love about being a part of EVC is how much our people love and are willing to help and serve others. And honestly, so many stories come to mind.
Yeah, from life groups setting up meal trains, those taking those trips to Honduras and Canada, to people pausing their everyday lives to see and care for one another. As we love God, the natural outflow is to show love for one another.
As a group, take time to answer these questions. Feel free to pause the video for you to discuss.
When you're ready, resume the video for the teaching.
Early in our marriage, my wife and I were elated to find out that we were pregnant. This had been an answer to a lifetime of prayers. It was only a few short weeks until our joy turned to unimaginable sorrow when we learned that our pregnancy had miscarried. This was one of the hardest trials that we had faced in our young marriage. And it is in these dark times that you see the love of those around you shine the brightest. We had friends and family in our life group that surrounded us, and they showered us with love and helped us by meeting all kinds of needs. In this video, I would like to continue our talk on circles. Again, when we say circles, these are the small groups that you meet with on a regular basis. At EVC, we call them life groups. And being a partner in a life group is so important to feeling connected to a body of believers. We're going to look at the early church and see how they came together to meet the needs of their small group families. So we see in Acts chapter 2, verses 42, that the early church met regularly to study God's word, to fellowship together. They shared meals and they prayed. And today we're going to continue to see how they looked after each other's needs as well. So Acts 2, 42 through 47 says that all the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teachings and to fellowship and to sharing of meals and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over all of them. And when the apostles performed many miracles and signs and wonders, and all the believers met together in one place, they shared everything they had. They sold their property and possessions, and they shared the money with those in need. They worshiped together in the temple each day. They met in homes for the Lord's Supper, and they shared their meals with great joy and generosity, all while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. This passage is such a wonderful snapshot of the way the early church group looked at small groups and how they operated. In verse 44, we see that they were coming together to meet the needs of others, and we see that they met not only the physical needs, we also see that they met financial needs and they met spiritual needs. First, they helped each other with their physical needs. In verse 44, it says that they held all things in common. And this is referring to the fact that they viewed all of their possessions as collective. If somebody needed food or other items, they were willing to share their possessions in order to meet the needs of others. We also see that they opened their homes to each other for meals and fellowship. And by sharing their possessions, they were meeting the physical needs of people around them. As we continue to read in Acts, we see that the persecution of the early church continues to ramp up as they begin to grow. But just as cultures around the world today, people who are in groups that are smaller and minorities, it can struggle to make ends meet. One amazing fact about the early church is in addition to meeting the physical needs of others around them, they sought to meet the financial needs as well. Verse 45 says, "And they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as they had need." See, life can be hard and financial stress can be enormous. And as we stand in the surf of life, the waves hit us at different times. And this is the beauty of being part of a small group, is that we can reach out in the hardest times of somebody else's life. We can help support them and lift them up. Being part of a small group is not only beneficial because you can receive the love and support of other members, but you are given the amazing opportunity to step into the darkest hour of somebody's life, reach in and support them and lift them up. In verse 46, it shows that they were worshiping together. As part of worshiping together, they were holding each other accountable for reading God's word and for praying together. And these are just some ways that we can help meet the spiritual needs of others. When my wife and I experienced our first miscarriage, we were in such grief. We had needs that needed to be met, and we had people that loved us enough to come around us and meet those needs. Chief of those needs was our spiritual need. We had people that provided meals for us, and they brought us flowers, and sometimes they were willing to give us their time and just sit with us so we were not alone. Out of all the acts of love that people showed us, I can tell you that the prayers that went up for us meant the most. When you're hurting emotionally, physically, and spiritually, when you experience grief of this magnitude, your soul craves to speak to the Father, but your heart has no words. Our friends and family stood in the gap and they interceded on our behalf. It changed everything for us. We started to heal and we could feel God's hand in our lives. We are not called to go through this life alone, but in a community. One of the best steps that you can take to be living in a Christian life, we see it in Acts, and that's to join a small group. It will cost you time. Our lives are very busy and our schedules are tight. Listen, I get it. But finding a group that can meet your schedule is vital to seeing the community that you are seeking. If you are not in a life group, I strongly encourage you to find one. At EBC, we would love to connect you with one and help you find a life group that fits into your schedule. Finding this circle can help be the most important step that you might need right now in your spiritual walk.
All this knowledge on serving one another is meant to be lived out.
One of Jesus' greatest missions was to serve others. He loved and cared deeply without hesitation. As believers, we are called to follow in those footsteps by meeting physical, financial, and spiritual needs.
As we wrap up, share about a time when someone met a similar need for you and how that impacted you and your family. Who is someone that God may be calling you to serve likewise this week? How might this small act serve as a reminder that we are not meant to live life alone?